Hey everyone, this is Brian here, and as you know, I'm a big wrestling fan, WWE fan, and I want to give you my thoughts on this evening's draft that just ended here in California. Of course, for many of you that probably watch it in the East or in the Central Time Zone, maybe even the Mountain Time Zone, you get it live, or if you got an HD TV here in the West, you can watch it live when it came on at 5 o'clock. Excuse me. Excuse me there. But anyway, let's get to talking about about tonight, about the draft. Now, the first draft pick of the night went to Monday Night Raw, and that was the United States Champion MVP. Now, to me, I'm pretty sure to a lot of you that saw it live, and to some of us that saw the 8 o'clock version. Excuse me again. I guess got a little bit of runny nose. Anyway, for many of us that saw that, when you saw MVP, the U.S. champ, get drafted to Raw, it kind of gave you the implication or the idea that the Intercontinental Champion was going to SmackDown. And that's exactly what happened, but I'll get into that. And as far as MVP being on Raw now, well, I think it's really going to help out, and I think it's going to change the landscape a little bit for Raw, because Raw has always been associated with the Intercontinental title. So now the secondary title is going to be the U.S. title. So it's going to be a little bit strange for them. So we'll find out. And then the second draft pick of the night also went to Raw, and that was the Big Show, which is not a surprise, because the last time Big Show was drafted to Raw was about 4 years ago during that draft lottery. However, there was a difference. Instead of having matches to find out who was being drafted, every week somebody came out from the other brand as that draft pick. So, for the second time Big Show has gone to Raw, which would be a little interesting storyline-wise when it comes to Vicky Guerrero. Then the third pick of the night was Melina, was the WWE Women's Champion Melina going to SmackDown. Now, just like I said with the U.S. Champion coming to Raw, the Women's Champion going to SmackDown kind of gave you the idea that SmackDown's Women's Champion would probably be coming to Raw, right? Well, we'll get into that. Then the fourth pick of the night, again, went to Raw. So far, it's 3 picks for Raw, 1 for SmackDown, and that fourth pick, which went to Raw, was Matt Hardy, which I think is going to really help, because this way it'll allow Matt Hardy's storyline character, on-screen character, to grow and probably be treated as a mid-card main eventer. I mean, he's already going to be in the main event of the premiere episode of Superstars this Thursday on WGN America. Then, the fifth draft pick of the night also went to Raw, and that was the WWE Champion Triple H, which means now, as far as we know, and this probably changed by the time Backlash comes and goes, Raw, just like SmackDown last year, has both championships. So, there you go. And then, the sixth draft pick of the night was CM Punk. And he went from Raw to SmackDown, which I think is really going to help SmackDown out a lot, because since they have CM Punk now, and they have no championship, I got a feeling CM Punk's going to repeat history again. And I'll explain that in a minute. And the seventh draft pick of the night was The Miz, going from ECW to Raw. And because of this, The Miz and John Morrison are no longer a tag team. Miz, after embracing and hugging John Morrison in the ring, turns on him, and then says, well, you got to watch the WWE.com post-interview with him to find out what he said. So Miz goes to Raw. And then the eighth pick of the night, Kane, goes to SmackDown, which is kind of ironic. Because last year Kane was drafted to Raw. And I think the previous year before that, Kane was drafted to SmackDown, which looks like he's being put back and forth. So we might see a Brother of Destruction's reunion there, possibly again. And then we had Chris Jericho drafted to SmackDown. And it kind of makes me wonder what they're going to do with Chris now. Is he going to remain the heel that he is? Or is he going to become big? What's going to happen? We'll find out. Then the 10th pick of the night was ECW's only pick so far, and that all depends on the supplemented draft this Wednesday, and that was Vladimir Kozlov going to ECW from SmackDown, which I think is a good fit for Vladimir, seeing as though he's not that good of a wrestler, and that ECW, as many of you said, is more of the nationally watched, televised developmental territory or minor leagues of WWE. Then the 11th pick, the Divas champion Maryse goes from SmackDown to Raw, which, like I said earlier, is because the women's champion went, which would make sense since Melina, the women's champion, is now on SmackDown. And then finally, Rey Mysterio, the Intercontinental Champion, drafted back to SmackDown, which would make sense since the U.S. champion is now on Raw. I think overall the draft was pretty good. You know, when you saw certain champions, you know, being drafted to other brands, it kind of gave you the idea that this year the opposing champions would be drafted to the other brand. I mean, like I said, when MVP got drafted, was the first draft pick of the night, being the U.S. champion going to Raw, you kind of knew that somehow the Intercontinental Champion was going to go to SmackDown, and that was Rey Mysterio, because there had been talk about that, Rey going back there. And then when Melina got drafted to SmackDown, you kind of knew that the Divas Champion was going to take her place on Raw. Now, the reason I say this is because it appears to me that WWE has turned Monday Night Raw into the SmackDown of a couple of years ago. That's right. That's what they've done. They've turned SmackDown into the Raw into the SmackDown of a couple of years ago. That's what it looks like to me. If you look at the people they've drafted and everything, it looks like what is being done to me. And it looks like they've turned SmackDown into the Raw of a couple of years ago for the people they've drafted. As far as whoever else gets drafted this Wednesday, it all depends. But right now, to me, this year's draft, which was a pretty good draft, to me, this year's draft allowed WWE to turn Raw into the SmackDown of, let's say, 2007 or 2006 or 2008, whatever. Basically about 2007, 2006. And the same with SmackDown. They got turned into the Raw of 2-3 years ago. So it's not much of a surprise that has happened. And as far, like I said, as far as who else gets drafted, you know, this Wednesday, we'll see. But as far as it looks like to me, SmackDown has become the Raw of 2-3 years ago. Raw has become the SmackDown of 2-3 years ago. And that's all I could say. All I could say is that SmackDown got some good picks. It's really going to help this show out. Raw did exactly what was being advertised. They sort of beefed their roster up a lot with with the likes of Big Show and Triple H and MVP and Miz, you know, and even Matt Hardy. But I think overall Raw did a good job. SmackDown did a good job. ECW, of course, doesn't have that big of a lineup, so you know they only get one, maybe a couple more draft picks this Wednesday. But overall, not a bad draft, and that's all I could say. And if you got any comments, just let me know. I'll listen to them. I'll read them, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.